All right, Mark Zuckerberg just dropped a bombshell. Big tech's censorship era might be officially over. Watch this.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Interesting. So Mark Zuckerberg has done a complete 180 on this. Well, I wouldn't say a complete 180 because if you remember, it was before the election. He'd sat down in an interview and he said that they were no longer going to be doing censorship. They kind of claimed we're not going to be doing censorship anymore. We were pressured by governments. That was a bad thing. But he announced we're not going to be doing any political discussion anymore on the platform. We're going to just blanket suppress all of it. So he was saying, we're not going to do the censorship stuff anymore of individuals and individual ideas. We're just going to censor everybody when it comes to politics. And now he's reversing on even that and saying, actually, let's bring back that political spirit to Facebook, essentially, is what Mark Zuckerberg is saying. So the question is, first of all, this is a good thing. I'm going to cheer this for now until we see how this maybe is being used in a way that we're not anticipating at the moment. And that, of course, could happen. But for right now, we'll just take it for face value. And this seems great. Great. Facebook is going to stop doing all of their censorship stuff. They were one of the worst offenders of it. YouTube is still the worst offender at this point. Actually, Meta has been worse than even YouTube on a lot of the stuff, but YouTube is right up there. So waiting for the day for YouTube to come out and also say, yeah, we're going to stop censoring also. I'm not holding my breath on that one. But the trend is happening now that Elon Musk has said, I've got a free speech platform. I'm not censoring anybody. And I'll give credit to Elon Musk on this. He is not, from what I've seen, there hasn't been a lot of censorship of the actual accounts. I'm not seeing accounts ripped off of the platform. But what he is doing is a different type of censorship, and that is taking the blue check away, not allowing certain accounts to monetize, right? Pushing, I think, for one, he really pushes himself. Every time I log on to X, I just feel like it's a string of Elon Musk posts, and that's what I'm getting. Every other post is an Elon Musk post. So he clearly amplifies his own account. And I'm sure there's other accounts that are getting amplified and some that are getting shadow banned, and but they're at least not being completely banned, I suppose. So that's better than it was previously under Jack Dorsey. Mark Zuckerberg, the new and improved Mark Zuckerberg. Isn't this strange? Have you ever seen somebody's personality change so drastically? It's like the guy got a lobotomy or something, like a reverse lobotomy. And now he's suddenly cool and he dresses well. And by the way, the watch that he's wearing in this video is worth almost $1 million. It's a custom one-of-a-kind watch, and it's like $900,000 on his wrist. Nothing says I relate to you people more than wearing $1 million watch, right? But this is an interesting development for Mark Zuckerberg. So he's now going to the anti-censorship campaign. Why is he doing this? Is he doing this because now Donald Trump says, well, it's because I threatened him. And so now he's afraid. Okay. Again, I like the outcome of this. I like the fact that Zuckerberg is changing his tune on censorship. I don't really like the president of the United States threatening companies and making them feel like they have to behave in a certain way. That is a violation of the First Amendment in and of itself. So I don't want these companies behaving in any way because of the government. I want them behaving a certain way because the market demands it. And what the market demands on these social media companies is for people to be able to say whatever the hell they want. That's the point of these social media platforms. So if Donald Trump was threatening Mark Zuckerberg, that's not really a good thing. That's no different than Democrats threatening him and saying, we're going to rip Section 230 away from you, which I think Republicans and Democrats have been using that same threat. They're just doing it with different meanings, but they're doing the same exact threat. They're saying, I'm going to rip Section 230 away from you if you don't do if you don't do what we want. Democrats say, we want you to censor more. Otherwise, we're taking Section 230 away from you. Republicans say, we want you to censor less. And since you are censoring, we're going to take Section 230 away from you because you're censoring and you're acting like editors. You're not acting like social media platforms. But ripping Section 230 away from these platforms would result in a hefty dose of censorship. That's exactly what the outcome would be. They wouldn't be censoring less. They'd be forced to censor more because they would be liable, legally liable for the posts that are put on their platforms. So why is Zuckerberg doing this? Is he suddenly seeing the light and realizing that censorship is bad and he was on the wrong side of history? Or is he doing this for business purposes? Facebook is a dying entity. The only people really using Facebook anymore are the boomers. Everybody else has moved on to X and to TikTok and, of course, Instagram, which is Meta owned, but nonetheless, Facebook itself is suffering. What is the reason for this? I don't really know what his motivation is. If it's monetary, if it's political, if it's is he feeling threatened? We're going to get to, well, let's actually show this one. Let's get to this here. Oh, let's do the previous one here. Dana White. We'll get to the cage match between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. It might be more likely to happen now that Mark Zuckerberg is copying Elon Musk one more time. But before we get to that cage match, Dana White has now reportedly joined Meta on the board. The UFC CEO, Dana White, joining the Meta board. This is an interesting, Dana White is a giant MAGA guy, big Trump supporter. So this is what's leading me to think that Mark Zuckerberg's trying to get in the good graces of the current administration. He's seeing the type of effect that Elon Musk is having out there in the political realm. I think he's getting jealous. I think there's a lot of competition between the two. And I think he's thinking, all right, fine, it's working for Elon Musk. And look at how much power that guy has now. It'll work for me too, because I'm the Zuck, right? So now he gets Dana White, a big Trump ally, puts him in his inner circle. Mark Zuckerberg's already been good friends with Dana White, from what I understand, because Mark Zuckerberg got into jujitsu and all of that. And so he's kind of surrounded himself, part of his new persona, he surrounded himself with cool people in order for him to be cool. And apparently it's working, because the guy is totally, completely different. He's no longer Data from Star Trek. He's like completely changed into an entirely different person. So this takes us to the Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg saga. If you remember the background of the cage fight that was supposed to happen between these two that never did, mid-2023, Elon casually suggested that he's up for a cage match against Mark Zuckerberg. This was in response to Mark Zuckerberg's Meta releasing Threads, which was a direct competitor to Musk's X. Threads didn't really go anywhere. Nothing happened with that. But nonetheless, Musk was like, oh, so now you're going to compete with me. So let's, I'm up for a cage match. Well, Zuckerberg has been training in jujitsu. There was a lot of people out there wondering who would actually win this. There were bets that were placed. Would Elon Musk win because he's bigger? Or would Mark Zuckerberg win because he's training in jujitsu and he's younger? Zuck responded to Musk saying, send me location. And this got people really fired up about this, thinking, all right. And actually, Zuck took him more seriously. You've got two guys with Asperger's. And I don't know if they know whether or not the other one is in jest or serious or whatever it is, right? But Zuckerberg says, send me location. And Musk is like, all right, let's, I'm training. He says he's practicing walrus moves, which is basically lying on your opponent. Zuckerberg posted a photo of him training with the top UFC fighters. He's showing that, he wasn't messing around. He really would fight him in a cage match. Dana White, who's now on the board of Meta, and he's the president, CEO of UFC, chimed in saying that he would happily host the fight. He said it would rake in billions of dollars in revenue. I believe that to be true. He offered to make it a legit MMA event. But and Musk was like, all right, yeah, let's do this at the Coliseum. Let's make it like gladiator style. And ultimately, Zuck comes around and is like, I don't think you're really being serious. So never mind, let's just drop it. So Zuck thought he was being serious, I think. And I don't think Musk was ever serious about it at all. So which one of the two is not able to read tone and jest and know a joke? Neither of those two robots. So, but the reason why this whole thing started off, the whole cage match idea, was because of Mark Zuckerberg copying Elon Musk. And now here he is again, copying Elon Musk, saying we're going to go censorship free on Meta. And we're gonna move to something like community notes, is basically what he said. Instead of fact checkers, that they've moved to Texas. Elon Musk moved his factories and everything over to Texas, trying to move everything to Texas. Mark Zuckerberg then says that he's going to do something like community notes, which is what they have on X, and they're going to be launching something like that on Meta. So the saga continues between these two. We'll see where this goes. But the good news is Facebook will be back to political posts. When I post my shows on Facebook, I was posting a lot of every night. I would post the same clips I would put on YouTube. I would put on Facebook. Do you know how much I made every month on Facebook? Because they basically demonetized. They weren't demonetizing, but they were demoting. I made 10 cents a month. I mean, it was comical. And they really did deposit that into my bank account. They were like, here's your 10 cents, Kim, or here's your 13 cents. I mean, it was just literally that, literally like 13 cents in a month. I mean, it was just, so I stopped posting on Facebook because I thought, well, I'm not going to just give you guys this content for free. If you're going to, basically make a mockery of me and give me 13 cents, it's not worth it. But now Zuck is saying political content might be back. So we will see. It is a great place for a lot of the older crowd. A lot of them are there. And they are voters and they're very politically active. And so there is a big audience and a big space on Facebook. And it's good that people are going to be able to start speaking their mind again and not be shadow banned. All right. Other big news, potentially, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank says that he is nearing purchasing TikTok. So if you know, TikTok is set to be banned in the United States. The ban begins January 19th. So not long from now, TikTok is supposed to be banned in the United States. However, it is going to the Supreme Court on the 10th. The Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments on whether or not this is a constitutional ban. That does begin later on this week. So there is a possibility that the Supreme Court could stop the ban. However, and also Donald Trump said that he would stop the ban, that he wasn't for this. But Kevin O'Leary has come out saying that he is in talks and in the final talks, final stretch, I guess, of purchasing TikTok. So he says that, let me see if I can get a quote from him. He just said he just says he's on the brink of it. So that's what we know. We know that. So we'll find out what happens. I mean, I would imagine that TikTok would prefer not to sell if they could win the Supreme Court case. I think that they would prefer not to sell. If they can't win that court case, then I suppose there is your savior for those of you that are absolutely addicted to TikTok. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. Will he censor? Will he not? One other thing to bring up about all of the censorship that's going on social media. They're not. The question is, they're claiming they're not censoring, just like the Republican Party claims they're not censoring. They don't want to be censorship czars like the Democrats. But then they go out and they push all of these censorship laws when it comes to very specifically anti-Semitism in Israel. And we have a little bit of that later in the show. There's a new bill that's being proposed in New York that's totally and completely ridiculous. Trump has been talking about how he's going to go after those universities and rip their funding from them if they allow anti-Semitism on their campuses. And of course, what do they label as anti-Semitism? Any criticism of Israel is thought to be anti-Semitism. Any support for the Palestinian people is considered to be anti-Semitic. So they are censoring, and they're going to continue to censor. They're just, it's just their own version of wokeism. It's their own what you can and cannot talk about. And so we'll see when it comes to Facebook. We'll see how X continues. They've taken the check mark in the revenue streams for people that they deemed to be anti-Semitic. And, we'll see how TikTok does under Kevin O'Leary, what Zuckerberg decides to do going forward. We'll see all of that. We'll see what happens.